I often start with a quiz. I want to see who's awake and who's not. But this is an easy quiz today. There is a symbol which is almost universally recognized. Cross cultures, no education needed, and you can tell me what the symbol means. The symbol is a white flag and it means surrender. I think everybody knew that one. So I once in a while I give an easy quiz.
I appreciate that.
Well, the white flag tradition or symbol began probably 3,000 to 4,000 years ago in Asia. White was the symbol for grief, grieving for someone who was lost. And so white would adorn funeral processions. And eventually that, because many of the funerals happened because of conflict, that morphed into the idea of the white flag being lifted in surrender. It also occurred kind of independently in the Western world, where the body of important leaders, when carried on ship, the ship was adorned with white so that it could be respected. And so that the sense of surrender, even in the midst of conflict, was there. It kind of moved on. It meant ceasefire. It meant let's parley. It's time to talk and negotiate. And eventually it came down to, well, we experience it when we watch the news. We're talking about someone in Gaza who's trying to escape the bombing that perhaps is about to rain on their heads, hopeful that they will be safe when they raise that white flag of surrender. Now, surrender at times has also been a lot of a ceremony. So there have been great battles that have been fought in history, and the surrender was very ceremonial and auspicious and sometimes very gaudy. But it all still meant one thing. Yesterday we had Saturday Soul Boost. And then Saturday Soul, if you haven't been at Saturday Soul Boost, it's 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoons. And I play a little bit when we do Saturday Soul Boost. And I always come up with cartoons that go with the theme. And the one cartoon that I shared yesterday was a classroom, and the teacher said, "What does surrender mean?" And one of the students went, "I give up." And of course, that was exactly right. I give up. We even see it in sporting boxing matches. It's not so much a flag, but what happens when a boxer has just been beaten silly? What do? Throw in the towel, and that white towel, again, is a symbol of surrender. Well, might you guess it? We're talking about surrender today. And I've titled it A Flag of a Different Color, because I think the surrender as we know it conventionally, well, it doesn't always set well with us. Doesn't seem quite right. But let's go on to look at what it's meant conventionally to us. I want to give you first a key spiritual truth. And well, this kind of tips off the idea that we'll not only talk about surrender, we'll talk about letting go. And of course, we've sung about that already. When I let go of my need to control and accept life on life's terms, I am freed to be who I can be. So what is conventionally surrender? If you went to do a definition, you'd find a number of different things, but I kind of settle on the idea, giving up oneself or giving up one's possessions. Surrender. I give up. Giving up or giving in has the connotation of defeated. I'm defeated. The victor in whatever the conflict may be may want to humiliate the one that's defeated. Or the victor may be very magnanimous and say, well, I'm going to provide an opportunity to save face, but the truth is still there. Someone is given up and given in. Though many will say, resist, resist, resist. Don't give in, never surrender. Well, that never surrender doesn't seem to work either. We continue to look at it from, if we're on the side of the one surrendering, somebody else has robbed me. Something has been taken from me. What I've wanted, I'm not going to be able to get. I'm a victim. I have no agency. That's the conventional understanding of surrender. But we're going to look at it a little bit differently when we talk about spiritual surrender, which we're going to get to in just a minute. It's kind of already a bad taste in our mind about the idea of surrender. Although some of you may be elevated, you may be very enlightened, and you can just let that roll off your tongue. Yeah, there's a little something about it that leaves a bad taste often. The flip side of surrender, as I already spoke, is resistance. Oh, we want to resist, but we often do so to our own detriment. We don't allow life to move on. We don't allow for change. We don't allow for an alternative, and we resist, and we resist, and we resist. We suffer consequences from that again and again, but we still resist. We continue to carry a great weight as it was on our shoulders, and we insist on doing it over and over, almost endlessly. It's been true in my life, and I relate it primarily to the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness, as we've often said, hurts us maybe more than it does the one we're unwilling or unable to forgive. We carry this great weight on our shoulders. I grew up in a home where my mother put the fear of God in me. I say that kind of with a tongue in cheek, but I was afraid. I was scared of my mother, and I didn't want to displease her. And truthfully, I was verbally and emotionally abused. And for most of my life, I held a resentment for my mother. Most, I say, because it's only been about 10 years now since the time of her passing in a year before, when I was able to let that weight be lifted. My resistance to letting her off the hook finally was dashed. It was a simple thing. Someone said to me, your mother's down here in a nursing home only 30 miles away. Why don't you go visit her more often? Oh, I didn't want to. She had dementia, didn't recognize me, thought I was her brother often. But something happened when I was able to say, okay, I'll at least open myself to being with her and to expressing love toward her. Well, I did. And guess what? My mother, dementia and all, became a changed person. I like to think she became the person that she truly was. And so my little move in her direction allowed a great healing over the last year of her life. She lived to 95. But in that last year of her life, the weight was lifted off of my shoulder as I went to visit her, and she laid her head on my shoulder and said, I loved you. I don't remember her ever saying I love you in my life. But it was my little step toward surrender or letting go of that resentment, that resistance that I had had for decades, that allowed the great weight to be lifted. Let's go on now to the idea of letting go. There's an example of letting go in all spiritual traditions. I could probably have looked up something from every tradition or something that comes to mind, but I won't do that. I'll begin with a scripture from the Christian tradition. And I probably understood this a little bit differently for most of my life, but now it has a new significance to me. Scripture comes from Matthew 11. It's probably familiar to you. Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Here's the surrender part. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Letting go, not in my former understanding to a God outside of myself or to Jesus or anything like that, but letting go to the higher part of me, my divinity, that I'm both truly divine and truly human. Letting go of that. Letting go of that gives me an easy unity. I take that yoke to mean unity, and lightens the burden that I have. As I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the divine and the human, and knowing that we are both fully divine and fully human, I came up with a word ego, but I spelled it differently. Sometimes an I is pronounced like an E. So I put it I go. I go and I am. I am that great statement of true divinity, which not only is seen in our understanding of the divine in the great universal sense, but it's understood in the divine as I am us. I am the presence of the divine in this world. So I go and I am. The two parts of us that, if they're out of balance, now get it, I go is important too. And I am important. The thing is to put them in balance. And when we put them in balance, we understand what surrender is in a bit of a different light. Letting go is the term that I've settled on that works a little bit better for me. It's a little more palatable. So I let go of stuff. That's your word, Rick, from yesterday. I let go of stuff that doesn't work for me. Stuff that just keeps me from going where I want to go, keeps me from being, leaves me in this state of longing because I'm attached to stuff. I can't let it go. I resist letting it go. And another thing, I can't let go of control about it. Anybody ever have control issues? I confess. When I can't let go, I don't get to the freedom, which is our topic for this one. When I can't let go, I am blocked out from the freedom that's mine. There's a really good book that I'm reading. I'm sure one of the books I'm reading. One of the many books that are on my book stand that are in process. But a new one recommended to me called 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. Not particularly a religious book. Actually, it's oriented more toward Fortune 500 companies. But the principles in it are important. And this letting go of control is one of the principles that's pointed to early in the book. And I want to read just a little bit of what is said in that book. There are about 3 authors, so I won't tell you all the authors' names. The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership says this: letting go of control, more specifically, letting go of wanting to be in control of people, things, and circumstances we were never meant to be in control of, is powerful. And then it goes on to say, but not easy. Letting go is powerful. How about accessing a power that we have so rarely used? Going along with letting go of people and circumstances is letting go of who I think I am a little bit. Oh yeah, there are some very important things, but there are some things that we think about from that I-go perspective when it's all about us. Those things are in fact something that keep us from achieving the freedom. So here's what Lao Tzu says about letting go. So simple and so true. When I let go of who I am, I become what I could be. Doesn't seem like it goes together at first, does it? When I let go of who I am, I become what I could be. That's the balancing of I-go, or ego, and I am. The balancing of the human and the divine. The divine is a mystery often for us. We can comprehend only so very little of our divinity or the concept of divinity. And so we have a hard time putting it in balance. But the first step is to let go of not only control of situations and people, but of my concept of who I am. Because I may be so much more than that. I can become what I could be. The neat thing about that I am presence, remember I associated presence with I am, that divine sense of me, is that it's a wonderfully creative place. When it's with I-go, I'm likely to do things that I've done forever, all of my life, to knock my head against the wall one time after another. But change, an alternative, is possible when I open myself to the mystery that I can become. Oh, it's not comfortable because it's not certain. You want it to be certain, and it's not. But opening ourselves to that change and to that alternative allows us a new freedom, as we're talking about. Some of you studied the book, oh, here I am in books again, the book called Life Visioning by Michael Beckwith. And he talked about stages of consciousness. First of all, he talked about to me. Life happens to me. I'm a victim. Guess what? That's I-go, for sure. And then he talks about life happening by me. By the way, that same framework is used in the book, the 15 commitments that I just spoke about. Life happens by me. I take action. I am responsible for my life. But sometimes even there in that by me, I-go plays an overly important role. and we don't get to the I am presence, that creative place in the present moment. But then we get to it a little more closely. We meld the human and the divine, both of which we are, as we get to the stage called as me, or through me. Well, there are two stages, so I'll emphasize through me. So life happens through me. I put down some of my resistance. I relinquish a little bit of my control, and life happens through me. As it were, I get in the flow just a little bit. And that's where we move from, in that process of moving from to me, by me, onto through me. Somewhere along the line, we change the color of that flag. No longer is it a white flag with the distaste of surrender, but it's something greater. I was thinking about that, and Donna and I were talking about it. She came up, and I got to go back to my briefcase. I don't get everything up here. Hold on. I have a flag of a different color. It's violet. Violet color. You know what the color violet is? It's the highest frequency on the color spectrum. It's something that talks about imagination, about creativity. So I'm making a flag of a different color, and I'm making mine violet. Now you may have another color, and I affirm your color. But I suggest that if you can move to that place where you can be creative, when you can allow change to happen in your life, when you can let go of control just a little bit, then you'll have a flag of a different color. Ram, I know yours is green. Everything's green, Shanti Olmsted. But a flag of a different color. So there you go. We move from I go completely. It's all about me. I'm doing it like I think it should be done. And by the way, you're probably doing it the way you've always done it. To that meld of I go, because I need some of that. I need that determination from a human perspective. I live in this physical world. To the meld of that with the divine. I am, that I am presence, that place of creativity. So, having talked about all of this, about conventional surrender, kind of slipping past that, having talked about resistance and how prone we are to that, and then moving on to that letting go, that allows that which we truly desire to manifest in our lives, probably in a way that we didn't quite expect. We don't have control over it. We are in the flow, and it's surprising, and it's also wonderful. So how do I do that? I'm not going to suggest a list of things this morning, but I want to see if this will work for you. If you're here in person, you have to go home to do this. If you're with us online, you're already at home, so you can start at any time. Make a flag of a different color. If you've resisted surrendering to life on life's terms, make it a little different. Make a flag of a different color. Make letting go be different than the surrender that you may have resisted. And then I like this because it was really lovely in the song about saying yes, and it's also in the daily word that we read today. Saying yes to life. Yes, a big yes. Say yes to life on life's terms. That'll mean some acceptance. That'll mean maybe not knowing exactly what's going to happen for a while, but saying yes to life on life's turn, knowing, as we often say, that all things do work together for good. Two things. Make yourself of a flag of a different color. Get the discomfort of surrender. Kind of change it around. Make it something that knows you're going to be more than ever where you want to be with your life. That yes. One of the other teachers that I like is Eckhart Tolle. He uses the word surrender, but I'm going to change it to let go. Always say yes to the present moment, he says. Let go of what is. Say yes to life and see how life starts to suddenly work for you rather than to work against you. The key spiritual truth that I had was when I let go of my need to control, remember control is a big part of that, the ego part of it, and accept life on life's term. I am free to be who I can be, and so it is.